Let's get to question and answers.
A question regarding what you mentioned about covers was by Matthew, and he's asking, would you recommend doing a cover in the genre and concept that you've chosen for your record?
Perhaps. I think that's a good question. Perhaps because, I mean, I would say yes and no. The yes answer has to do with um, you will learn some things about studying, doing a song in your intended genre and the genre that it's from by having to rework and emulate and fashion for yourself the version of what that is going to be. I think, yes, it is very, I think it could be very important. The no is that I think it's super cool when somebody picks a song that is outside of their genre and they adapt it to their genre. That's also a really great learning exercise. How do you, because you're identifying what is a great song and you're transforming it. That is a producer's role. That is an artistic role. So I think the answer is yes and no, but for those two very positive reasons.
Great. So the next question is by Marcel, and he says, "Hi, I'm a live looping artist who does pop song structures. So most of my mojo comes from doing it live.
Mm-hmm.
Any experience on how do I project that into an EP, or should I see planning an EP separate to the live show that I do?"
That's a really good question. I think if you're a performer and you perform electronic music in a live setting, um, I think you should be documenting. I would hope you do document your work, document your shows, and then take that into the laboratory um, and distill it down. Figure out how to turn as an like as an early work, like what I was saying about like an early version of getting the song idea down. Take a performance. Your performance is going to be informed by the people that you're performing to. A lot of your sections are probably longer because people are dancing and people are, it's more of an interactive moment. But in terms of a record, you're certainly not going to want to have a song that goes on for 20 minutes. That's not how you're going to make an EP. So you can take what is a live performance and you can condense it down and work it in to take that live performance, make it into a working version of the song towards a record. And then at that point, you may have begun making your record, or it may show you how to, because maybe the recording is not very good, or there's things you want to change because some things in the live setting that don't translate in terms of arrangement or energy of element choices, or like the arrangement. And by arrangement, I mean, when I say arrangement, I mean the instruments that come in and out and where they happen. Then there's the structure. You also might want to consider how to modify the structure to be a record. So I think that's where you need to start and evaluate. I don't think they necessarily have to be separate. I think that your live show, and this is true of any genre. If you go to an open mic or you're a band and you play and you have a way to record your show, well, that's great. And then record that as a way to start and identify how to condense it down and make sure you have a record that's equally compelling as the live show. Oftentimes, a live show is a longer version of the song because you have these other elements that you're playing off of, and the energy of the room and the visuals. So I hope that answers the question.
Great. The next question is by Aiden. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. How do you balance moving forward with the plan for one EP and working on other new songs? How do you recommend keeping up with new ideas you get as you are going through with making the EP?
Good question. Do not take work when you're making, and this applies to everyone. when you are working on, and we'll get into this more as we talk about the recording phase, and pre-production phase. But as you're working on your recorded music, don't spend too long doing it. Don't overthink it. Don't turn it into. It might take you 6 months because you only do it in small segments of time. But if you're doing it full time, come on, it shouldn't take you that. It shouldn't take you 6 months. It shouldn't even take you 2 months. Hopefully, in terms of working on new music while you're trying to make your EP, try and keep them separate. If something occurs to you and you have inspiration, make a very quick document of it so that you don't lose the inspiration, you don't lose the idea, but set it aside. Put it into your ideas for the future. Do not do not overcomplicate things for yourself. Do not give yourself too much to work on. I'm not saying don't think about writing when you're recording, but try to keep them separate. I was just making, just finish. I mean, it's often, for artists, they have writing phase and they have a recording phase. And I was just making a record with this band called their Parachute. And, Will sort of said to me at the end of the recording phase that now he was going to switch back over to songwriting. And I thought that was interesting. I was like, well, yeah, he knows himself and he kind of compartmentalizes. It's not that he didn't have ideas for songs when we were recording, but he sort of documented, he set them to the side and waited until he had an appropriate time to work on them. But that's not the answer for everybody. If you feel like that you can do both, more power to you. But what I'm going to be saying over and over again here is planning, preparation, separating things, creating goals, keeping notes, making outlines, being as structured as you can will be very, very helpful.
So the next question is from Bernard, and he's asking, he says, hello, Jacquire and Graham. Would it be nonsense to include a crooner song, say performed in like a Sinatra style, together with another song that is electronic, such as Depeche Mode? And he says, thanks for your amazing help.
Well, no, I don't. I mean, if that's here, it goes back to what I was saying before. If that could be confusing to a lot of people. If those are the two songs that you're putting out there, I don't know that you would have. I don't know that your fan base would be equal. Would be equal across both things. Maybe they would. I mean, maybe you're the type of artist that can do all kinds of things and be successful at it. I'm not saying don't go for it, but making a croon type of record is definitely different than making an electronic type of record. If you have the bandwidth and capacity for it, and you feel like that your fan base that you want to build, the profile that you want to build, if that's what your goal is, go for it. I would say at first focus on one or the other, because you don't want to confuse your audience about your identity. But at the same time, maybe you make an electronic based song, and that it has, maybe you put like a section in it where you do a little bit of crooning, and that could be like a really cool thing, a really cool look for that electronic song. But then you're also you're also setting up your listeners for future works that you might release, or if you want to make the croon thing, well, maybe you do something really simple, like in the chorus of the song, you have a very synthesized, arpeggiated keyboard, or very distinctly electronic drums, or some sort of element of that type of music. That's the way I would answer it. Just be careful not to confuse people.
So Paul's asking, do you sequence an EP like you might do a live set where people are thinking that they're going to listen to the tunes as a journey? Or should we try and really keep in mind that people are going to stream things and skip around? So should we try and put, say, the slower, more intimate songs in the middle of the EP and bring it down and prepare it for the last song, which is going to be a big bang? What are your thoughts about that?
I think that's a good thought. I mean, and sequencing it like you would a live performance. Yeah, I mean, you want to have dynamic. You want to have a dynamic listen. I think if you're making a body of work, you can't ignore treating it like a body of work. You have to, you have to treat it with the intention of it being your ultimate hope as an artist is that someone would put your single on and then listen to the B side, or your EP, they'd put it on and listen to the first song, last song, album, all the way through. Um, that is the hope, and you should construct it that way, and sequence it that way in the way that you would do a live set. You want to come, you want to, if you're, you want to engage your audience. You want to come out there and you want to kind of get everybody engaged. You probably want to do something that's a little bit more up and rhythmic and a little bit louder, and then settle things down, and then kind of, have that dynamic and that journey. I mean, as a performance, an artist that's established, sure, they can come out with a ballad or a mellow song, to start their show because that's one of the songs people are there to see. As a new artist, you don't necessarily have that luxury. And you do need to keep in mind when you're sequencing that, yeah, you should, early in your sequence, you should have some of the things that draw people in. It doesn't necessarily have to be your single. And oftentimes, as you know, a single will be buried deep in an album because the artist really wanted to be sure that, that as you listen to the whole body of work, that you were on a journey. Like if your first single is song 8 on your album, well, you can always release song 8 first as a single, and that's the only thing that people can listen to for a minute, for maybe a week, a day, a month, 6 months, whatever. And then the whole thing comes out, and then they realize, like, oh, this is where it sits in the journey that they want us to go on. Yeah, sequencing is important, and it goes back to, this is why I want you to make early versions of the songs. Have a concept. Lay the songs out within the concept. Have a flow to it. In the same way that you need to structure and have momentum and engagement within a song, you need to have it across a whole body of work and as a listen, so that you don't want to do the same thing. You don't want 10 songs to sound the same or feel the same. You just don't want to do that. That's not a very engaging listen.
Right, so this will be the last question for this section. So, is it fair to say that in this phase of planning and mindset, when it comes to your songs, it's more of the specifics of knowing the key, the tempo, and the structure than actually knowing the sound that you're going to work towards?
Yes, definitely. Because discovering the sound is a journey. Certainly, so I'm not saying don't think about those things. You need to plan those things, but it's going to be much easier once you have a document, like a working document of those things. When you can hear the song in the right tempo and the right key and the right structure, you know where you need to maybe introduce a new instrument into the structure. The structure is good, but we haven't lost any momentum. But we need a new element here, like the second verse or the section that comes after the first chorus. Or if you've got 2 back-to-back verses, you might want a little musical interlude between the verses. Might be nice to introduce a little bit of something there, like maybe you introduce the instrument that's going to appear later in the song, in the bridge, or a solo, or it's going to carry some melodic hook. Yeah, I think, Chris, answer me the question one more time, just because I want to be sure that I'm fully articulating all my thoughts. I'm sorry.
So the question was that in this phase of planning and mindset, is it more important to know the key, the tempo, and the structure of the song as opposed to the sound that you're trying to work towards?
Yes. Yes. And the other thing I was going to say, and I thank you again. Thank you for asking me that again, Chris. And thank you. I forget your name, but thank you for the question. When an artist comes to me and they say, I'm trying to figure out my sound, I feel like if you've come to me as if you've come to me to figure out your sound, that's kind of a little bit of a flag for me. It's not that of course, I want to help them figure out their sound for the record, but sometimes people think they haven't identified themselves as an artist. Sometimes I'll get a manager or somebody that calls me that maybe they have a bit of profile from YouTube because they've done some cover songs, or they've been an actor and now suddenly they want to be a performing artist, but they don't really know what their sound is. To me, that's a little bit of a red flag. They're too much of an open book. They're too much of like, dress me and see if I like the way I look kind of thing. It's like I want someone to. I would prefer that an artist show up with a bit of an identity already, with something in mind, because that's how I can engage them and help them bring it out and put it into a record. That's also the reason that I'm asking for you to create context for yourself. I think that's establishing those things early is important, so that you can build off of that foundation. And now I'm not saying that once you start making your record, you might change the tempo, or you might change the key, you might add some music in, you might take it out. But it's like if you leave all that decision making for the recording process, and you look how much work you could have done already and prepared and have a more clear understanding of where you need to go. And also, if you do decide to change the key from what you thought was the right key in the recording process, well, at least you're not sitting there wondering in the pressure situation of actually committing to the recording of, well, this is the first time I'm thinking about this. I don't know if I'm right. You've done some work to establish these things. I hope that helps.